This is the GARIS Masculist MGTOW flyers. That is 2 3-page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 376, entitled How Masculism Forces Women to Grow Up. This is part 2, continuing straight on. 4. Masculism will turn the tide on gender politics. Whenever men turn their minds to something, they always dominate it due to their superior intelligence, their greater IQ variance, and to their much higher testosterone levels that drive men to be much more ambitious, persistent, dogged than women. So achieve far more than women, which is why in all cultures boy babies are more valued, since all cultures know that boy babies are much more likely to grow up to be highly valued members of the culture than girl babies, who will grow up to be merely more baby factories and child raisers, which is not status worthy, since any woman can do those things. Masculinist scientists are already destroying feminazi myths, such as women being equally capable as men, performing at male achievement levels, or being as smart as men, all of which run counter to the scientific reality, as I've suddenly got YouTube coming up with... How do I get out of this? Oh shit. I don't know. Am I going to have to stop, or I can get rid of it? Oh, I can just... I can't get rid of it. I have to find where I was. Oh, it's gone away. Computers. Oh, where are we? Masculinist scientists are already destroying feminazi myths, such as women being equally capable as men, performing at male achievement levels, or being as smart as... Oh, now it's come up again. Fuck. Ah, shit, there's always the disadvantage of doing something real time. As explained by masculinist scientists, who are the most formidable enemies of the feminazis, who preach more a feminist religion than a feminist scientifically based reality to women, whereas the masculinist scientists teach an ideology that is much more science-based and hence more accurate, more in accord with realities than feminist wishful thinking. Once there are a large number of masculinists in the parliaments, schools and universities, they will turn the tide on gender politics. They will push their masculinist agendas and harangue the feminazis for being hypocrites, teaching both genders that women oppress men far worse than vice versa, and that women have to fip up or they don't eat. Men are smarter than women and have a 10% higher IQ variance, so the genius masculists will have no competition from the smartest of the feminists, since the feminists are women and hence dumber. It is then inevitable that men, masculists, will dominate gender politics, getting what they want. For example, the men fairing of the gender laws, the passage of the para, etc. 5. Masculism will force feminists to become bi-conscious. As masculists become socially and politically powerful, those feminists who remain monoconscious, that is, who refuse to become bi-conscious, that is, having had both their feminist and their masculinist consciousnesses raised, will be seen by the masculists and society increasingly as MFBs, that's monoconscious feminazi bigots, and hence be severely criticised by the masculists and increasingly by bi-conscious feminists, who will criticise the monoconscious feminists as being bigots, closed-minded about how women oppress men, and claim that the MFBs are destroying the feminist movement due to the contempt that young women have against the MFBs for indirectly causing young men to refuse to give young women their sperm, due to the rejection by young men of being fathers due to the toxicity of divorce created by the hated fluffy feminist hypocrites in the divorce courts. Young women will see these MSBs are the root cause of their babylessness, and hence hate these MFBs, so will vote with men to amend fair the gender laws, so that the divorce courts are made men fair, so that young men can be persuaded to be fathers again. This denial of masculists to give young women their sperm will force young women to oppose the MFBs, which will cause the gender politicians to think, oh my God, large numbers of women are also voting for the men fairing of the gender laws, so we had better pass these laws, or we will surely be voted out of power by a combined male and female bloc vote against us. If we want to stay in office, then we had better give these gender politically minded voters what they want, or we are history. With both sexes bitterly opposed to the MFBs, monoconscious feminism will die out to be replaced by bi-conscious feminism, which can see that women oppress men too, that gender oppression is not a one-way street. Those women who oppose the bi-consciousing of gender politics will be fiercely attacked by the masculists, who will hurl male abuse at them with full male verbal force, which will truly frighten such monoconscious feminists. Such women will also be attacked by young women who want to be mothers, who will attack them with all the frustration and hatred of women whose deepest instinct, that is to be mothers, has been blocked by these MFBs. It'll be the masculists who will tell these young babyless women that their babylessness is indirectly caused by the MFBs, due to their takeover of the divorce courts. Thus the masculists will directly and indirectly cause women to become bi-conscious. 6. Masculism will crush feminazi misandry. Once there are millions of masculists who are well informed of masculist ideas, it will not be possible for real feminazis to express feminazi misandry in public through fear of being harangued by very angry masculists in the audience, blowing these MFBs out of the room. Masculists will be very conscious that women oppress men far worse than vice versa, and hence will not tolerate the feminazi opinions that are so misandrist. Such women will have their fucking heads bitten off by the masculists. Masculist gender politicians will do much the same towards MFB politicians in their parliamentary committees when gender issues are discussed. When men become collectively angry against women, then there is nothing that women can do about it, because women are both intellectually and physically weaker than men. So when men become collectively angry at women, women will simply bow meekly. It's what women have done for millions of years. The masculists have the intellectual tools now to crush monoconscious feminist ideas. This is not to say that men don't oppress women. Men certainly do. But it's equally not to say that women don't oppress men. Women certainly do oppress men, and worse than vice versa. So when MFB starts sprouting deeply ignorant misandrist views, they'll be aggressively crushed by the masculists present, whether in families, companies, public meetings, or in the parliaments. Monoconscious feminism will be killed off by the masculists as bigotry, as ignorant, as uncivilized. 7. Masculism will crush feminazi isainacy. Some of the masculist leaders are scientists like myself, who have an utter contempt for PC due to its ignorance of science and its intellectual dishonesty. Personally, I loathe being told that black is white and lash out against it, putting on my masculist and scientist professorial PhD'd hat, and then crushing the assignate ignorance of these PC fairies, these assignate fairies, with very difficult to refute scientifically based arguments against their PC claptrap. Most feminists I see as assignate and innumerate fairies. Assignate means unable to think scientifically due to ignorance of science, unable to look at a statement cynically, asking how could such a statement be scientifically verified? How does it make any logical or numerical sense? Most feminists live in an iscyanate fairyland, believing what they want to believe because it makes them feel good. They don't care too much if scientific knowledge contradicts these beliefs. Such iscyanate ignorance makes masculist scientists like myself get very antsy and motivated to crush such ignorance with masculist scientific harangues, blowing these 21st century peasant feminazis out of the room. When I hear, for example, from iscyanate feminists that they believe that women are just as capable as men in any intellectual activity, I sneer, and if sufficiently motivated to explain to these child-minded ignorami, I bother to teach them that women are not men's intellectual equals by presenting the scientific mathematical case, but often it's a waste of time, either because my female audience is too ignorant to know what I'm talking about, or are just too dumb, so that my mathematical arguments simply waft over their pretty little heads, their child-minded, 10% smaller-brained brains. For example, take the case of the glass ceiling that the feminists keep harping about, that is, the feminazi idea that it is men who block women from advancing to the highest positions with their male prejudice against women. As a masculist scientist, I make the claim that women are genetically incapable of achieving the highest levels of achievement in large numbers, that is, at a rate similar to men. Here is my reasoning. It's a mathematical argument requiring a smattering of mathematical knowledge that most women don't have, certainly most feminists, since they chose to abandon math and the sciences as soon as their schools allowed it, since such analytical subjects hurt their poor female brains. Here's the argument. Men are smarter than women on average by 4 IQ points. Men have a 10% higher IQ variance than women, so have IQ scores more spread out over a whole population compared to women's, which are more bunched up. Knowing the average IQ score and the standard deviation, in brackets, a measure of how spread out scores are and equal to the square root of the variance, one can plug these two parameters into the bell curve IQ distribution formula and obtain the female and male bell curves. With these two curves, one can readily calculate the proportions of men to women at various IQ levels. For example, the IQ needed to get a bachelor's in math, a master's in math, a PhD in math, a junior professorship in math, a full professorship in math, to win the Nobel Prize in math or the Fields Medal in math. I've done these calculations and found that the mathematical predictions match the empirical realities very closely. For example, at full professor level in math, physics and computer science, my 3 specialties, the math prediction was about 1 in 10 would be female, which matches my personal observations. There are only a handful of female full profs in these fields, about 1 in 10. At the Fields Medal level, that's the Nobel Prize equivalent in math, the math prediction is that only 1 woman per century will win one, and that is also the empirical reality. Only 1 woman has won the Fields Medal over the past century. Feminists should know about such calculations based on a very solid mathematical model that matches the empirical real-world reality very closely. But no, in their iscyanate, innumerate ignorance, they continue to sprout their feminazi twaddle about the glass ceiling, when the reality is that women are too dumb to be able to reach the highest levels in large numbers, the way men can, due to men's genetically superior endowment. This is something that women will simply have to lump, the same way the blacks have to accept that they are the dumbest people in the world, with the Australian Aborigines having an average IQ of only 60 and 1 billion black Africans having an average IQ of only 70, which is why they never discovered writing, nor have won even 1 science Nobel Prize. They are simply too genetically dumb. When some iscyanate, innumerate PC feminazi, or SJW, that's social justice warrior, claims that women and blacks are white men's equals, I just roll my eyes, dismissing them as 21st century peasants, as ignorable ignorami, as not worth bothering with due to their inferior intelligence and knowledge levels. When innumerate feminazis come out with their feminist claptrap that utterly contradicts scientific realities that are well verified, then that feminazi ignorance will be mercilessly crushed by the masculist scientists like myself, who have no patience with it. When your worldview is based on science that you have studied all your life, you don't take kindly to peasants who tell you that the earth is flat, that women are men's equals, that black is white. Bullshit, bullshit. Go back to your pig pens, you swine, you peasants, you Untermenschen. If you want to be taken seriously by the elite masculist leaders, you will need to be scientifically competent, because science is the best knowledge-generating system that men have ever invented. We owe our current standard of living to the technology generated by a basic knowledge of science that required male intellectual genius to discover. The female contribution to such discovery was negligible, which is to be expected with women's 10% smaller brains. To the extent that the feminazis are incapable of accepting the above scientifically motivated masculist critiques of monoconscious feminism, then the masculist scientists like myself will continue to utterly crush feminazi iscianacy. We will continue to twist the knife. As a masculist scientist, I would be much happier if the monoconscious feminists would grow up, become mature, informed, scientifically educated, and had the courage to face up to the negative realities of women's genetic inferiority relative to men. That is, the elite males, those men who cannot share their intellectual passions with the women they are penising due to women's genetic inferiorities. The leaders of the masculists may be resigned to women's genetic inferiorities, but at least women could grow up and accept the fact that there's a class of men who will always be above them. All the feminazi blustering in the world will not change that fact, so masculist scientists just wipe their hands of these monoconscious feminazi ignorami, hoping at least that the latter learn to